You don't want to talk about node sighting? Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. This is the third Cyberpony Express workshop. So previously we covered hardware strategy. This one is going to be about citing. The next one is going to be about the BBS and the librarian, maybe MUDs, um, LLMs with RAG, all that. And then we decided to add one more at the end, which is going to be about OPSEC. So, and stay tuned for more details about that. So today we're going to cover how and where we want to cite the different types of nodes. So from the beginning of this project, when it started in the forest at a commune many years ago, the person was like, how can we connect the communes together without needing the internet and the government satellites and the cell phone networks? And I was like, actually, that might be a really cool idea because it also works in disasters. And there's a lot that we can do in addition to that. But by solving that problem, we're able to solve lots of other problems too. And doing it in San Francisco is a good example where like we're testing it, we're building it, we're seeing what are the pain points in order so that it's easier for intentional communities to use it as well. Um, so if people know about communities in the Bay Area who are interested in using this kind of thing, we would love to work with them. There are a couple that we are already working with, but we would like more as more. So if people have suggestions for that, that would be awesome. Also, one of the stated goals is community gardens, using community gardens as hubs of communication and resource distribution during disasters in particular. But that being really sort of the same thing as intentional communities. Community gardens are a community coming together, setting an intention, building a space together. That's the same thing, right? So connecting those is the same kind of problem. And we've had some people suggest a few that would be good places to start. If people have ideas for that, we would love more suggestions about community gardens that you think might be willing to host one, especially if they're located somewhere that sort of like center of mass for population. Then that would be great. Um, the other big thing, the big opportunity that I see is organizations that are already engaged in disaster preparedness and response. So Burners Without Borders is a natural partner for this project because we're doing the same kinds of things, right? Like we want to build networks, we want to connect people, we want to go in when there's a hurricane and everything is down, right? Like the cell phones are down, the internet's down, the power is down. We need to be able to communicate. Bring a bunch of these, bring a bunch of these, you can communicate. So it's a natural partnership that formed early on, but we've also got these other really cool agencies and organizations, like, for example, ARES, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, which is uh, inter intergovernmental, multinational, like worldwide organization that is relying on amateur radio people who have trained and certified to use amateur radio to facilitate communications during disasters. And a big part of that is building networks of repeaters, which is a very similar thing to what these are. Amateur radio repeaters is kind of like you have two amateur radios, okay? You put them on different channels. You're connecting the microphone to the speaker to the microphone. Somebody calls one channel, it's going to rebroadcast on the other channel. You put that on top of a mountain, you can create these big, you know, connections. It's backwards this way, right? So a lot of those groups are already doing what we're doing, um, or some version of it. And so they're natural partners that we should be working with. And the ones that aren't doing it yet, especially, are a really exciting opportunity for us to reach out and build those relationships for a very particular reason, which is that the other big organization is called RACIS, which is Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, and it was started by FEMA. And so they have all these special um, arguments that they get to make about like we need a little piece of land on top of the mountain where we can put these. Because it's going to save people's lives because we are sponsored by FEMA. Like this project is really important. And so they already have access to those places. They already have those relationships with the local regulatory organizations, and they already have repeaters set up in those places. And so adding one of ours would not be like a huge lift. And so these are natural partnerships that we should be setting up. And those kinds of projects are being handled locally by amateur radio clubs. And so if you look at the highdesertinstitute.org website, I posted a big list today of a bunch of research I did into all the amateur radio clubs that are hosting repeaters all over the Bay Area, into Sacramento, into the Central Valley. And a couple of them also have Meshtastic networks, including Diablo Mountain, which is, it's so hard to point when it's backwards. It's kind of like right there, that one. Okay. So if you're in SF, if you're in Sacramento, you can see that. And so you can communicate from SF to Sacramento today through Meshtastic using this one relay on top of Diablo Mountain. And there are a ton of other mountains that already have amateur radio repeaters that are being hosted by a bunch of different clubs and organizations, from Palo Alto to Mount Tamalpais to in the South Bay, all the way to Monterey. Like, these clubs are everywhere, and they already have repeaters set up on all of these mountaintops. And so building relationships with these organizations is going to be a key way that we can get access to also installing repeaters in these locations. Another interesting example is there's an amateur radio club that has 2 repeaters on top of Susho Tower. So like, people are already doing that, and there's not a Meshtastic node up there, but there could be. And so that's the kind of thing that would be, for like $30, we could do that, right? It's just the relationships that we need to build with the people to figure out, like, who do we even talk to, what kind of permission do we need, and so there's a ton. I found a ton of these clubs, and I think like a lot of them also are doing other things that would be beneficial. Like, for example, almost all of them is doing workshops and trainings to get certified for amateur radio, and doing the certifications, doing the tests. They're hosting the tests like once every couple months or something, because it's all volunteers. Like, some person who has like the higher level license will come in and volunteer to administer the tests, and now you're certified, and you get to change the setting to a much higher power level in these, right? And then you can reach much further than most people are allowed to. There's all kinds of advantages there. And a lot of these have contests. So there's this whole thing in like DX clubs, which is like distance clubs. They're doing contests for like who can send a message the furthest in this one particular way, or using one particular type of antenna based on a knowledge of which level of the atmosphere is ionized and the solar wind, right? Like, all these different factors and circumstances that contribute to the performance of antennas and radio transmission. So a lot of these groups are into like really interesting kind of stuff that like is way past what I know or what most of us probably know. And there's a lot we could learn about how to do what we're doing much better by partnering with these groups and, getting them excited about what we're doing. Yeah. Yeah, you can use it to talk to people across the world. You can use it to like, there's this whole thing of like bouncing a signal off the moon that it's like a competition people do. Like, we're all listening to the moon, we're all trying to send something. Whose message do we hear? That person is the winner. There's all kinds of stuff like that where it's like so cool, and it's the kind of skills and knowledge that would really benefit the rest of the project of what we're doing. So here the pictures. This one is called Baymesh, and they have a lot of other tools that are built into it too. So like, for example, you can go on either of these. This is SacMesh and this is Baymesh. And the links for that are in the list that I posted. So you can go on there and see a real-time diagram of all of the nodes, how they're connected to each other, like where are they physically at, right, in real time, and you can see their ID and you can send them a message, right? And so these are the kinds of things that would be really interesting as we explore how other people are doing it. That would be a really cool thing to include in even like the BBS, for example, if it's keeping track of like all of the things that it's seen, right? Like what is the layout like? Where are the opportunities to, add a node, because there's nothing connecting in this one particular place, right? And so those are all kinds of things that we can think about when we look at the projects that other people are doing with the mesh networks that they're also building with Meshtastic. Um, and so I think like there's a ton of information that we can get from all of these groups. I think it's really exciting. And we also have, we talked previously about if we wanted to build um, hyperlocal weather forecasting models, then we would need to start putting weather stations in the different microclimates. And then we can use that data and report that data to build local forecasting models that would, potentially be more accurate than what we're able to get now, especially since we've laid off all of the people who were working on weather forecasting. So curious to hear what other people have to say or think about it.
Um,
Um, or if anybody is already involved in any of these clubs or knows people that are.
no worries if you don't, but
I mean, I thought you had to get your Moritz code license. You got to be able to do the bleeps and cleeps. Is that still true to be part of like the hammies? I don't know. I thought that was like a thing.
No,
not anymore.
it used to be a
Uh,
thing.
it
Yeah.
wasn't a thing. Last time I looked at getting my ham license, they were like, yeah, I was like looking at memorizing dots and dibs and I don't know. It seemed really tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have to do it when I did it. And everybody was saying, wait, it's dumb that they took away this requirement. It's like, when were you using that? Like,
Yeah,
Except
exactly. Okay,
the
good.
test
I
is
mean,
much
I'm
easier now.
Hmm.
like I know a lot about electronics and radios in general, so I don't know. I want to do it.
yeah,
The practice tests are really good. If you know about electronics, if you know algebra, you'll pass the test.
Connecting with like the Bay Area radio groups or any radio groups that are not in the Bay Area, it's going to be very similar to connecting with your local like community gardens and stuff. It really is just about reaching out to the people who are on the list as the organizer, waiting for a response, maybe gently reminding them if they don't answer your email, and then like kind of saying like, how do I help? Not all radio groups, amateur radio groups, use a mesh network or maintain a LoRa node. Like sometimes they're just repeaters for ham. And so, what we can be doing is getting these radio nerds involved in a new thing that they maybe have not seen before. And if you bring a nerd, a little nerd gem of a new thing they haven't seen before, they will love you forever. And so, it is actually a really great way to get involved organizing. Um, you know, that's part of the reason why we put this together was like, can we get a bunch of people who want to do organizing, want to do on the ground, like grouping up? Can we get all those communities to somehow connect together in a way that's decentralized, like in some sort of meshed network, like of a bunch of people who are all in charge, but not any one person is in charge. Balin, did you have a question or a thought?
Yeah, I just kind of randomly. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I just kind of randomly stumbled on your workshop here. Say after seeing some of your posts on Instagram, regarding current climate
Mine?
things. Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. What's your? I just started following you. What was your name again?
Oh, I'm Liz.
Liz, right?
Yeah.
But everything you guys are talking about, it's something I've really been pondering for a long time, but more recently because we do need alternative systems, right? For instead of relying on the governmental systems, which obviously do not serve us, even when they function, right? But so, I've been networking with a lot of different community organizations. Just so happens, I want to interview a lot of the old timers because a lot of them are passing away. You just mentioned radio, and there was they were they're kind of a radical radio station that was founded out of San Francisco State called KPOO. And yeah, if you're familiar with them, but they've been around. But their founders, like, they're family friends. But one of them, the last one, recently passed away. Arnold Townsend, who was also a community leader in the Fillmore. And then the other one, one of his good friends was a former Black Panther who passed away a couple of years ago as well. But their organization would most likely, if you haven't reached out to them, if you're not familiar with them, would most likely be interested. I might still have some contacts there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would actually be great. We are trying to make a Rolodex. I will say, on the cybersecurity front of things and security in general, um, part of the goal of this is resilience. The other one is, I mean, back in the day when we wanted to build this whole like internet, where the one of the stated design goals was partition tolerance, right? As in like some of the thing could go down, but that didn't mean all of the thing went down. And it was like that for many years, and now there's like four companies, and if one of them gets hurt, the whole internet doesn't work anymore and everything's so interconnected. So, as we build up a little ecosystem on top of Meshtastic, as we like place Meshtastic nodes and connect a lot of these groups together, the the mesh network itself will become more partition tolerant and won't be reliant on one or two big repeater nodes to do stuff, or one or two big backhaul nodes that move something over the standard internet and then let it back out again onto the mesh. We're going to get more partition tolerant, um, and that's going to be great. And as we connect a bunch of amateur radio groups together, it will also be important that we don't accidentally create a list of people who look like a bunch of agitators, essentially, because it's gonna be radio people, and radio people are, from way back, usually pretty competent at organizing, and they're usually pretty they're kept an eye on, and so if you make a big public list of specific individual humans with names and email addresses attached to them, that list might be compromising. And so, we want to make a directory, but do we want to create a Rolodex that then becomes super public and then we distribute that super public Rolodex? We've just kind of broken the anonymity feature of our network if we do that, right? And so it'll be really easy to like trace back any individual like mesh networking node to the people who maybe gave out the node or who maintains it if we do make a big list. So we'll try to make like a bunch of connections, but the big thing is the reason we wanted a bunch of people in the room and we weren't just like, well, me and CJ, just email us and then we'll make a big list, is we want y'all to do some of this so that there are at least a few paths to have to follow to really like figure out who's trying to build this alternate non-government like sponsored internet. Uh like so dropping the names of the organizations is going to be great. Individually introducing us or people in the group who've maybe moved into like working groups. And I was thinking, actually, I didn't mention this before we went live, but I was thinking maybe what we could do is do like 4 breakout rooms by 4 regions, like Pacific North, West Coast, Northwest, West Coast, Southwest, East Coast, Northwest, East Coast, Southwest, to like kind of get people in those various areas to coordinate and like talk about who is their local radio chapter, and then like kind of nominate folks to go out and be like, hey, do you want to get involved in a mesh networking thing? It's another radio cool thing. And that way we could kind of be individual nodes, acting as individuals and not a giant group of people who are all trying to move as one, which is actually not, it's actually very fragile to move as one. So, that's kind of the vision and partly why we're like, come do it as a team. So,
The other thing too is like with this making this list, there are a lot more groups than this that I did not put on the list because a lot of them are like not really doing a lot. Like they want membership dues, and then they have like a newsletter. Maybe they have like a monthly meeting, and it's like they're not even doing a repeater. It's like what are we paying for here? Like, why are we paying for this? Especially because like with this project, we've raised like a lot of cash in the last few weeks, like because there's a specific thing that is for that we're gonna do, right? And I don't understand this like membership fee to be part of a club thing, right? Especially and you go on and look at the picture and it's like all of them are like 70 plus white men. And it's
Yeah.
like these kinds of organizations are like this relic of a different era, right?
Hmm.
But the kind of problem that they could be addressing that is actually way more interesting and valuable that people want to contribute to is this kind of problem where there's like a real social problem caused by corporations that's an actual threat to like people's life and safety, and we
Yeah.
can easily solve it together with a different way of thinking about the same type of thing. And I think that's an opportunity that no matter where you are, everybody has an opportunity to find a way to contribute to that kind of project.
Yeah. Anarcho-feminist non-hierarchy. Shit, yeah.
And no membership fees.
Liz, I have something that might be novel in a sense. I'm part of a Kiwanis club, bunch of old dudes, old white dudes, been from World War II. Great people, love them to death. We donate thousands of dollars to kids per year. We raised like $20,000 at our charity recently. Great stuff. The thing that I was thinking about is Meshtastic, you know, repeaters, all those nerds are kind of secretive and being watched. Kiwanis is global. Kiwanis is also in every city. And those people in Kiwanis are also those same old people that know other people and have hobbies. And I was thinking, I was like, if you're wanting to keep things private, you don't want some information being shared about some groups, you could, of course, create different classifications, secure, confidential. But what if you just started with groups like Kiwanis who help local communities to help connect with those groups or people they might know? Because those are a lot of really old dudes that have those connections and are there to help the community. Like I know that our president would be like, yeah, let's throw some money at that. Or he might have those connections that can help kind of get that ball rolling. So maybe instead of just focusing on like just, amateur radio clubs, why not check with volunteer clubs? I think that might be a route to go.
Yes, let's definitely, literally, any group that might need communication during a disaster. So that's all of them. And, but also any group that is like service minded, volunteer minded, that has a network of volunteers and that maybe has a network of volunteers who are a little technical, but don't have a ready use for those technical skills. I think one of the big things that draws a lot of people who are in this room to this chat is that, like, we all went to those hack for good hackathons in the 2010s that never did anything and, like, weren't about and never went anywhere. And, like, they got a lot of attention and even a bunch of donations, but then not a lot of real things. But like what we need is, for you to be a little technical, or at least not afraid of reading a lot of documentation. And then, going out to non-technical people and educating them how to use it, that kind of stuff, which you can't always find a good opportunity in a small town, for example, to do. So yes, please, like any volunteer group that you could get involved in, like distributing disaster relief or disaster communication nodes, that would be a good group of people to put us in touch with.
Pull on that string and see if anything comes from that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, long term, 10 groups isn't hard. We could probably pull that together. That's not terribly difficult. But if you think about like long term, we're going to just say it succeeds. You have to think of scaling.
Mm.
So how would you kind of said like split up into 4 breakout rooms, but have we considered like how divisions would work or like onus of like you get this, I get this, like because there would need to be some type of, I guess, compartmentalization. And maybe that's a way that those groups that are a little bit, I don't want my private information being out there, is kind of need to know basis. Like this division has public ones and these guys want to be private. So there's at least some type of decentralized hierarchy, if that makes sense, where there's lines of communication and
I think
Uh,
what.
for me, what like the purpose of this project is to find the places where we can deploy resources to strengthen organizing that's happening and to do it in a way that helps communities to center intentional groups, right? and to focus on trying to empower community gardens in particular, and intentional communities in particular. But I mean, I think for most people, if you want to use the network, getting a device is the right way to do that. I think the task here is like, where do we want to put the network so that people can use it? And so like the groups that it's like there's the task of how do we teach people how to use it, which I think is sort of maybe more what people are getting at with the comments of like, if these groups can use it, these groups can use it, yes.
Yeah.
It's public, it's open, it's public, it's free for anyone that wants to use it. And these are not expensive. But the restricted funds that we've raised are for building the network. So in terms of like, where can we put the network so that those people will be able to use it, or and especially if there are places where it doesn't exist, the infrastructure is not in place, so no one can use it, then that would be like a perfect spot for us to invest in, especially if there is a community garden there, there is already an intentional presence there, and organizing happening, that would be a good use of these resources, is to install the infrastructure to allow people to get one of these and be able to use it to communicate with their friends and their community.
So say
So I
we
think
were to set,
Um,
if we were to set up a new node, say my local area has like one. If we were to set up a new one, how much bandwidth can that handle? Like how many people in our community garden? Because my club does have a community garden. Like what should we expect?
It kind of depends on the speed of the node and whether or not they have a half or full duplex, or I don't know, that's not the right term, but like if they can transmit and receive at the same time. And so there's some fundamental limit on that. The other thing is there's a dog, so I just want to highlight that there's a dog. And also, I dropped this in the chat. Site.meshtastic.org will help you to figure out, um, how far is your node likely to reach based on its topographical location. So if it's like in a valley versus on a hill, I think I saw some other folks talking about that. The other thing I was going to say in terms of the like trusted groups and hierarchy thing, so with the Meshtastic, you are able to join different meshes, and that's kind of like joining different discords. You can be in multiple meshes at the same time. And then you can have channels, which is like channels in Discord or Slack or any or Teams or whatever. And so those are like under a specific mesh. Getting multiple meshes going in an area is something that I think a number of like metropolitan areas have, and these are on different channels, different frequencies, or like different different things that mean that they don't crosstalk. This is part of the bandwidth thing, but it's also part of the like security thing of like we don't want our information compromised. You can have private channels so that everybody on the mesh can't read this one channel because you have to have the key to have that channel. As discussed in the other meetings, this of course presupposes your device does not get compromised, but in general, if your devices don't get compromised, a private channel keeps your communication end to end encrypted, so you're safe. And so it won't really present too much of a problem to like let anyone onto the network as long as you just don't share the passwords to the secret channels where you do the thing that you don't want people to see.
Someone said, what's a good way for us to connect with each other locally? If you get one, you can immediately reach everyone in range.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, I can reach people in San Francisco, 100 miles away.
Mhm.
So, like anyone on either of these pictures, I can text them, and we can join public conversations. Yeah, it's just like a BlackBerry. It's actually the same keyboard and trackball from the BlackBerry,
Do I have
but
you,
it's
AJ?
also like a cheaper one. You can get like any of these Meshtastic devices. The one that we gave out to everyone who came to the first workshop, not everyone, was only $30, and it comes with a battery. So you just plug it into a solar panel or USB or something, and it's just going to work indefinitely. Power is out, it's going to keep working for, as long as the sun keeps coming up. So
CJ, what was your node's name again? I'm like on the Meshtastic thing. I just wonder if I can get your I'm on the Meshtastic thing. So if you're in San Francisco, you should be able to see me on the map. I've actually put my map on for now.
I have my GPS on, so I'm gonna tell you secretly what my name is on there.
Okay. I mean, I think I've got mine, and this is something that you can set. You can set your GPS location and it's not precise. And so mine's fairly imprecise, and you can set the precision of the GPS as well. So you can say, people can tell if I'm in the city, but not where in the city, or like people can tell I'm in, the Mission District or in Pack Heights, but not where exactly. So,
Bunch of questions on TikTok.
yeah.
Someone said, "What's the manufacturer of the one?" There, a lot of them are LilyGo. This one is the LilyGo T-Deck Plus. The difference between the Plus and the not Plus is that it has a case, or it's the same. You can get the cheaper one without a case, and that's fine. The big difference with these is that it's got the keyboard. You don't need to connect it to a laptop or a cell phone or something to be able to use an app to use it. You can just use it right here on the device. You can just bring two of these to Burning Man and text each other 20 miles. Another person said they got one and they can't reach anyone from where they live. The antenna in this is really small. So a lot of times, like, you will benefit a lot from having one that you like put on the roof. Because if you have a big antenna on the roof, that's going to be able to reach much further than the one that you're going to use comfortably and take around with you. So like I have a big one attached to my camper on my truck, and then this can hop across that to reach, these big networks. It's the same with any radio. Like if you're using an amateur radio and you look at like the NOAA weather station versus like holding it up in the air, like you can't hear if it's here, but you can totally hear if it's here. So having one that you leave up here that you can connect to, it makes it a lot easier.
So,
Someone said, "Is there an upper limit to nodes in an area?" No. Um, it gives you like the percentage utilization of the channel. I've never seen it more than like 4 or 5%.
yeah.
So if it was busy, it would just wait, right? And then it would take a minute to send.
Yeah.
But the more nodes that there are, the more of them can handle it. And so it becomes less of an issue when there's more people.
Just a note on the T deck, right? There is the one with the external antenna, which you'll get better range with. So if you haven't bought one, or if you're thinking about getting one, the external antenna is a neat option.
I just really want to be able to put it in my pocket.
You can, I'm gonna get the foldable, one of the foldable, or like do a little thing so I can do it on the back, is my vision with it, with like two 90-degree connectors so I can put it in my pocket still. That's what I'm gonna do with this.
Yeah.
Another really interesting thing with those is that there's this whole new field of like procedural antenna generation and people using AI to come up with like shapes that you look at it and it's like, what am I? This is like pop art or something. It's this like crazy shape, but it's like the perfect antenna for like that frequency and that use case. And it's generated by AI, and you can make like way better ones than what we would normally use like a monopole. So there's a ton of like antenna design, antenna theory is like a whole universe unto itself that people are interested. If someone wants to like learn a lot more about that and talk about it, I mean, I would watch it.
Yeah, it's a dark art. It's great. Um, somebody was talking about, if you're in an area with a lot of skyscrapers, it's actually not that bad. It's just if it's super, super, super dense skyscrapers, like a lot of skyscrapers is not as uh big of a deal, especially if you use the right transmit type. I've heard there's long fast and there's short slow. And I've heard short slow is better for there's a lot of buildings, but that's a different set of channels. And then your router can act as or your Meshtastic thing can act as a bridge between two channels if you want as well. That's configurable, but I think it might be something you have to install. But that's something that you can do for that use case. Um, and then uh yeah, you know, they're covered in cell antennas because also cell antennas are a very hotly contested and loud and traffic prone and different. They're different than LoRa. You know, it's still a sort of radio bandish, but like it's it's different. So it you know, LoRa just does behave different in a city.
Speaking of that, another person asked about frequency. I think we're all using 915. 915 is the one that has the most power. So like if you're of all the options that there are, that's the one with the highest power level, being the highest frequency. So 915 is probably going to have the best performance.
Yeah. Vex asked where they live is flat for hundreds of kilometers. There's a couple of super tall antenna towers smack in the middle of town. Best practice is to getting a repeater up on one of the towers. Um, who maintains the towers? It kind of depends. If it's a city group, they may let you. If you get in with the local radio group, there may be somebody who works on the antenna who also goes to the radio group. So I would say like side channel in rather than try to go through the official channels. But if if that's not something that, you know, you just can't get in, it's controlled by a bunch of people who are jerks, it's fine. Um, you know, there's unorthodox methods, which I'll leave to your imagination, and then there's more orthodox methods. There's stuff like balloons. One of my research team put together this like uh thing about basically if you have a big mylar balloon and like a you know a string and a little heavy thing, you can kind of put it in the middle. And a lot of times that's like a tall tower that you maintain. And you can get those up to like 100 feet without upsetting the FAA or requiring, you know, any kind of actual registration of things. Similar to a weather balloon. It's like a radio weather balloon, you know. So that's a way to do that as well. Um, if you
Someone
put a big shiny mylar balloon and it happens to drift into the tower, they'll probably come get it. So it's probably not a good way to like deliver a node. But you know, you can put a balloon up on top of your house and no one can get mad. So there's that.
It will also probably perform better without like being on the ground or being closer to the ground because without a virtual ground plane, monopole antenna will not perform as well being
Uh,
up in the air.
I did not know that.
Someone asked the what is a good way to share channel keys? So I looked like really deep into this week because there was something about the way that it was that the encryption was explained that didn't make sense to me. Um, because if you have AES, AES is a symmetric encryption protocol, so it's not possible that you have people who are communicating encrypted with AES who haven't pre-shared a key. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense. If we have channels that are using AES, it can't be the case that like direct messages are using AES because there would be no way to share messages. And so I looked like really deep into it. And actually, direct messages are using asymmetric key encryption with the ID of the other one as the public key. So that was my assumption, and that is true. So it's also 256. So it's just as safe, but it's a different kind of encryption where you can send encrypted messages to each other without sharing a password first. So if you send an AES key for a group chat, across a DM, it is still safe. It's still encrypted. With it's still 256, but it's asymmetric versus symmetric. So that's fine.
Yeah, 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 there is an asymmetric AES. It's just nobody uses it. Usually they do it as the others. It's a scheme.
I
Yeah.
mean, the asymmetric key exchange uses RSA, ECDSA? Any
It's
ideas
elliptical.
on?
There's
Okay,
Yeah.
good. That's fine. That's fine.
It's like the current one, the 2015, whatever the current one is. I don't remember the name of the
Oh,
algorithm.
there's like chai poly whatever and all the other stuff later on, but that's fine. Like just any one of the ECDSA is probably okay.
It's easy to say. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it'd be really, really, really hard for somebody to sneak in on that, at least with today's technology.
They would have to break all cryptocurrency first.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like they'd be
Other
more
more rich.
incentivized to
Yeah.
focus on that if they did, you know. So, um, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you went into that. That's cool. Um, yeah, the uh, persistent solar powered mesh drone network. I mean, that is a thing. They have that. Those are available. You can buy mesh drones commercially. The Crazy Fly platform has a like power sharing protocol even with like a swarm of LoRa enabled mesh drones.
Wow.
Um, so that would be called a crazy FLIE crazy. Nope.
There's also a big like the people using the ATAC over Meshtastic. ATAC has been written to run on
Yes.
Meshtastic, so
Yeah. ATAC is Android Tactical Assault Kit, it's an Android thing that you use for, if you're playing paintball and have a squadron of paintball players and they are gonna go, get somebody else who's also playing paintball and you want to have a encrypted connection over Meshtastic. So
it's pretty wild how much it can do. Like you can not just like designate target
audio.
on a map, but you can like take control of the drone and like on the Android device, like see through the camera and like pilot it. And it
Yeah.
was I think it was originally developed by the US military, but this is
Yeah.
like an open source public.
Yeah, CivTac is the open source one. But it's been analyzed by many comms nerds who are ex-military, who are not, you know, it's not an op. We have looked into this, like it's really fine. It's like it's a maintained thing by civilians who are no longer in the military. So yeah.
Does the mesh network map show the extent that my node is reaching? Yes, if the nodes that you can see have chosen to share their GPS position. There is an effort using this PAX counter integration that recently happened because you can also reliably use the relative signal strength of the node to determine the distance. And if you have that for more than one known location, you can triangulate where they are, even if they're not sharing their RSSI. But I mean, if they're not sharing their GPS, just with the signal strength, which is how like retailers beacon, like pinpoint what product you're standing in front of, right? Like this is already happening to you all the time. And it's really easy to do that. So there is an effort to integrate that so that we would be able to also use positioning that way. And that's like scary, but also it's happening all the time. So I think it's good that people be made aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of cool plugins that have been developed for it. There's also a bunch of ATAC plugins and yeah, it's basically something that you can the other thing, some people asked this the last time and it was like, is there a way that we could kind of use walkie-talkies over LoRa, sort of? Or like network packets of sound that go and ATAC does this. It kind of has like a walkie-talkie store and forward configuration so that you can send a broadcast out to your team and somebody who's out of your range will still get the broadcast. And it'll be stored for you to listen to later rather than just being some sound that you have to capture. So
There was a really cool discussion with a bunch of the Meshtastic developers about like these old like audio encoding standards from like the 90s when they were trying to digitize with like extremely low bandwidth, and they figured out some like really cool strategies for how they could do like super compressed audio, because most of the audio is not necessary like for just voice messages. So it's something that they are considering and people are working on, so it might become a feature at some point.
yeah, that was before the fast Fourier transform though, wasn't it? Or was that, am I, when did the
I think so, yeah.
there's like not a, like, when did this come out?
They talked about that, and they for some reason felt like there's like a better way. Like if you like the most high compression is like the phonics of the basically like tech like voice to text essentially, with like all the tone and stuff going along with it. That was the most compressed audio that they found. But
Yeah. Oh, LPC. Yeah. The speak and
mhm.
spell. Yeah. You can make speak and spell sounding things with that one. Um, let's see. For the action this weekend. Okay. So, yeah, if you're wanting to do this weekend, my recommendation would be get if you have like a T deck, or if you have something that has a USB-C, you can connect a Pixel directly to the T deck and have it talk over a wired connection, which will allow you to turn off Wi-Fi and turn off Bluetooth, which is the key thing that you really want to do. And of course turn off your cell radio. That said, you know, like one, they're not really looking at Meshtastic as well, so you kind of don't have to worry too much about being triangulated on Meshtastic, or on LoRa really so far. But you know, that'll change over time if like if we have a lot of success using this thing, then it'll become a target basically as soon as this is useful, it will become a target. So, you know, I dropped some links in the chat of like a training I did for some journalists recently, and it has some checklists and things like that, and some other stuff around um, you know, OPSEC. So if you need that for this weekend, there's some stuff about attending protests and things like that.
We are having a workshop about that on the 17th.
Yeah, we are definitely having that. So I just felt like a link would be helpful. So, but yeah, it's you should be able to use these. You probably will struggle to use an iPhone with like a T-beam securely, because it doesn't support like device to device, you know, communication over a cord, and so you would have to have Bluetooth on, which will give away your device essentially. So it doesn't allow you to stay secure and safe necessarily from PAX counters, though it will keep you safe from a stingray. It's not necessarily, it's not always stingrays that everyone is using. Sometimes it's another thing that is not, that doesn't force a 2G downgrade, and so it like it's not really detectable right now. Oh yeah, leave all your air tags, anything that's, you know. Um, but you know, if you're gonna use it for coordination, like consider get the T deck and like use the keyboard, and don't even bring your phone with you. It's the iPhone will not turn off, and the Android will turn off, sort of. And like it depends on the Pixel will turn off, but not all Android devices. Um, and if it's GSM locked to Verizon, it's like a problem as well. So anyway, so I would say like bring like a T deck with a keyboard and leave your phone at home. No, we never found a stingray, or at least not so far. I'm gonna be out with the hunter though this on the 5th, so we'll see what happens.
We should do like a fox hunting thing.
We definitely should. Let's see. Let's see.
Somebody was saying that they were confused about the you said to turn off Bluetooth and Wi-Fi,
Mhm,
but that it wasn't enough to obscure a phone. But
mhm.
you were talking about the TDEC, right?
Correct. The TDEC is if you turn off Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and your cell service on a Pixel, that will turn off. Or if you've got a Pine phone or another like super open source privacy group one, then you can turn those off. Some other Android phones you cannot turn off. iPhones you cannot turn off. So there's like that's not a thing.
And a lot of your
No.
GSM modems may still be connecting to towers, even if it's in airplane mode or turned off or
Um also Faraday bags are not, most of them suck. Most of them are leaky. Most of them are lies or scams generally. Most of them really only block RFID. And so, and just because it seems like your phone is not reachable doesn't mean that your phone is really not reachable. Your phone may be reporting non-reachability, but erroneously, because of anti-theft things that the phone has built into that, because criminals would grab your phone, throw it in a Faraday bag, and then go off and wait for the battery to die, and then replace the battery and force a factory reset. So, yeah, Faraday bags are just not a real thing. And that so they won't protect your phone, and just to try not to be tempted to bring them with you, basically, because you will, don't try to work around it. It won't work. Like, you know.
there's also parallel construction. Like generally speaking, the reason you don't want to have like the thing that we are worried about with stingrays
Yeah.
is not necessarily
Block VO2 sini.
Sorry.
the way that they would identify you, right? That's used as parallel. So there's a whole thing of like parallel construction of like constructing evidence to reach a conclusion that they already want, and anything that can help them do that, right? So there's all these people being charged with like felonies for going to a protest where like another person did something. That's like a whole legal doctrine now. Like if you're just around there, you can be held accountable for something some other person did that you were not even involved in. And so it's really about parallel construction. So if you are walking up to that and then suddenly your phone is in a Faraday bag, if it's a perfect one, and then you're walking away and suddenly your phone is not in a Faraday bag, like that's still parallel construction. Like it's still obvious that you were there, right? So like those kinds of things are just you just don't bring your phone if you're going to a protest.
Yeah.
Don't bring any device if you're going to a protest.
Try to take public transit. Don't take a Lyft or an Uber or a Waymo, especially. Um, Body copy for reaching out to libraries and public community gardens to ask to install. No, not really. My recommendation for reaching out to these, and I would say this is definitely part of citing, is, you know your audience. Like a community garden is most likely to reject you if you come out and you're like, "Hello, I would like to bring technology to your outside place. I am a tech person here to technology or non-technology thing." They will be like, "No." And so if you're like, "Hello, I would like to help you distribute free food to your neighbors. We just have this little thing and we'll put it up and it's not cryptocurrency and you know, that kind of thing helps.
And
Uh,
like volunteer first. Like,
yeah,
build some trust before you're like, let's change things.
yeah, yeah, exactly. If they are already working with the local food bank, like, the angle is then disaster preparedness and not like food. And again, it might actually be more helpful to distribute it to your local food bank instead of the community garden, especially if they're like, no, there's other ways, other people. It's really like the people who are going to have stuff in a disaster that people need, like food banks, community gardens, tool libraries, you know, regular libraries that are often tool libraries as well, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, Power When the Lights Go Out is a great book on that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, libraries will probably be thrilled to put a Meshtastic node up at the library. Most public libraries, librarians, comrades, all. And so, you know, hit them up. They're down to help. Down to clown, as it were. Um, let's see. Let's see. Oh, and I don't know if I got your question, Adrian. I think you're talking about what it says. Can you fill me in on what that is? I don't know what you meant there, so just maybe ask again. Um, and then do wave bubbles work on a stingray? I don't know. No idea. Never tried it.
I feel like there's a lot of code words that I don't know happening in the chat.
Yeah. Um, yeah, leave your Fitbit at home, leave your air tags at home. If you have cochlear implants that are Bluetooth enabled, those will give you away. If you have a pacemaker that is Bluetooth enabled, that will give you away. If you have a glucose monitor that is Bluetooth enabled, that will give you away. I know sometimes you cannot remove these devices from your body, or at least not very easily, and that is not your fault. And if that means you can't go to a protest, that means you can't go to a protest. And also, that is not your fault. And it is up to you to do a different thing, something else. So, you know, like place Meshtastic nodes ahead of the protest. You know, that's totally a thing you can do. Yeah, straight to jail. Disaster preparedness. Um, Yeah, tall trees in people's backyards are actually a great way to find to like place a thing. You do have to be able to get back to the node sometimes to like check on the battery or like adjust the solar panel and wipe the tree sap off of it. So think about maintainability when you're placing a node, you know. You don't want to have to just keep placing a $30 node once a month when the battery runs out or something, you know. So there's like you can hoist it into a tree, but you better be able to get back up into that tree. So, yeah.
The solar panel that we linked in the build list is super cheap and it works great. I went over to the community garden where I installed it, and it was like a few days later, and it was the morning, and it was like 90% charged from the previous day still. So definitely enough.
Oh, the handoff event. Oh, like an event where we hand things out. Was that what you mean?
I think they were talking about a protest.
Oh, oh yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know that one. Let's see. Yeah. If y'all are on Meshtastic and you want to coordinate stingray hunting this weekend, hit me up. I'm Liz the developer and I'm on the network. If you don't have the Meshtastic node, drop me a I don't know, maybe you have my signal. If you don't have my signal, drop me an email and I'll try to get to it. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. If you're recovering from surgery or you're in a thing, you don't have to go to the actions. You can do other things. And like going to your library and setting up a Meshtastic node is the revolution, y'all. Um, yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, actually, churches, yeah, especially the Unitarian churches, would probably be helpful, but also a number of other groups, as long as they're not very obviously aligned with the other team, then, you know, so yeah. Oh, the hands off event. Okay, I see. Um, yes. there is like a big mobilization happening on the 5th, and if y'all want to get involved, that is happening. I'm in this call trying not to be like, go. I'm trying to talk about what you could do so that we can have plausible separation of concerns, if that makes sense, you know? So
I legitimately have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah, so it's fine. Um, yeah, yeah. On the yeah.
Someone asked what was the book that you mentioned with something to do with power?
Uh, it's called Power, comma, when the lights go out, I think is what I recall it being. Yeah, Power when the lights go out. And it's about like indigenous groups and solidarity among BIPOC groups who survive disasters. So, you know, it's pretty lit. It's good reading. Oh, there's like a link in there to a solo or sorry, a Meshtastic solar buoy. There we go.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, that's
One
pretty.
of the other things that we're working on with the same nonprofit is Indigenous Solidarity Gardens.
Mhm.
Um, so if people are interested in that as another way to kind of adjacent project to get you in with community gardens is like, hey, can we plant some like white sage and tobacco to provide to, in my case, we're working primarily with the Mayan spiritual leaders in the mission. But there are all kinds of groups that, in particular, like alternatives to cigarettes for ceremonial use. I feel like historically, like tobacco is like incense that you burn in like a brazier, right? It's
Mhm.
not like we're smoking cigarettes for the ceremony. So being able to provide that is something that a lot of people are really excited about, and that they actually asked us to do. And so it's one way we can contribute to gardens is by um, like sponsoring and even paying for like the cost of getting those plants and putting them so that they can be provided to people that need them. And once you're doing a project like that, they're like anything you want, right? Like we trust you. You're obviously like not a bad actor at that point. So
Yeah.
another option for building rapport.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, you're also in with the indigenous groups, which, they want you to show up and be nice and, and be a pal. Um, yeah. It's a good way to get uh yeah, in with the crew is, you know. Oh yeah, Indiana has land trust sites with food forests. That's super cool. Yeah, be a pal. Um, yeah, there's a want for garden related services. Yeah. There's if you look up Indigenous Solidarity Gardening, there's like stuff you can plant in your front yard, stuff you can plant in your backyard, stuff you can plant at your local community garden, and groups who will pick it up, and there's groups who will do all kinds of stuff. Um, I've mostly seen the ones where you plant them in your back garden and it's really more about like pollinators, but I haven't I didn't know about the one that did the like tobacco and the sage. That's cool. That's cool. So yeah.
Another cool option is doing endangered plants. Can't see it with the background, but I have saguaros getting started and also Joshua trees for the
Yeah.
next two land projects that we're still fundraising for. So they take like years to get started. So um, there's tons of stuff that you can grow if you want to contribute in a way that's going to make you like very clearly an ally to the project for trying to get in with community gardens.
Should we show up the Meshtastic site planner and just like how to use that to plan a site?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen it.
Yeah. So, if you go to site.meshtastic.org, and I guess I'll share my screen. Share screen number one. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is site.meshtastic.org. So I'll just kind of go and like let's say if I want to plan a number of sites, I can go over here and it'll give me a site transfer. It'll just kind of give me a random name, and then I can give it the amount of power, which frequency, and so we're on 915. And then you can set an antenna gain. So if you know what your antenna gain will be, and that'll be on your antenna, I think, right? Like when you buy the antenna, it tells you, or is that something that's more determined by the
It will
circumstances?
it will allegedly tell you.
O-
It may or may not be correct.
Okay. So let's say that like I'm gonna put one and there's Presidio Hill right there. So I'm gonna go put one on Presidio Hill and I'm gonna put one in the Golden Gate Park so I can kind of add another one. I think I can like, site transmitter set with map. Can I just move it? Oh, I think you can just do the one at a time. Never mind. So I'll just check to see, Presidio Hill, right? And then the maximum dBm, it's in negative, and so I think, usually it's like 20 to like 30. It's like what a lot of the time. And so if you run this, it's in the negative, but normally put it in the positive. I don't know why it's in negative. So, but it'll run a little simulation, and it takes a second to actually run. Did it run? No, it didn't run. Um, and so, oh no, where did it put it? Uh, well, I ran this a second ago and it worked better. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like. What did I do differently? Is it maybe because I did it so small? Maybe. I'll hit refresh and then just, I don't know. Doesn't have location services enabled, so I'll put it back over here, where many of us are. I'll just kind of go with the default 915 and then set with map there. And then I can run that simulation. Yeah, I guess it is just the size or the amount of transmittability. So it runs this thing and you can kind of see what the node can see, if that makes sense. Like, and how far away and how much power it takes to see it. So over here we've got our 80 dB, and then down here, if you want to see like this side of the bridge, then you need the 130 dB. And so you can kind of see like the range of what your antenna will be capable of broadcasting to. Um, so this gave me an idea, like could we do it at Angel Island? And I was like, well, what if we put it there? And then okay, run the simulation. Um, and it looks like I guess you can drop multiple nodes. Yeah. So you can see like if we were on the edge of Angel Island there, it would take a lot of power because probably we're on the water, right? But if I just hit refresh, I can kind of clear it and go back down there. And I can go to Angel Island, and this is like the top of Angel Island. If I click set with map and then run that simulation, you can kind of see if it's on the top of Angel Island, it goes a lot further, right? So it handles top topography, but you can also see like, I put it slightly on the side over here, and so it can't see the other side of the island, right? So you can see if you put it on the peak, it's going to be different than if you put it slightly off the peak. And so if I wanted to create something that could repeat to Oakland, the top of Angel Island might be a good repeater as long as there was also another repeater over here and another repeater over here that could actually ensure that that was 1, 2 hops, right? So this is how you make that plan. Where do I put it? And is it going to be a good idea? Especially if it's going to be like, Angel Island, it's like $30 to get out there, and like kind of you have to hike up to the top, and that's like 2 hours of hiking. So, if you want to get all the way to the top of Angel Island, you got to make a little plan. And like, is it gonna be worth it, or is this not gonna matter at all? Well, you can kind of check in advance before you go out there and like put your rain boots on and deal with the whole thing. And you can also see like, uh, like given the altitude, how far is it likely to actually reach? You can also see, I mean, like mountains are blocking this. Like there's mountains here, and that's why we can't get the radio here, you know? So if you lived here and I wanted to know if placing a node on Angel Island is gonna cover right here, I know it will specifically not cover right here, and that I would need to like probably put another one, let's say here. And if I run that as a simulation, I think I can see that this will get covered. Nope, nope, it's not gonna work. So I would have to probably put one, let's say, I don't know, here. Let's see. Um, and if you can get the map to kind of cover that part, yeah, there we go. All right, now I know, like I can get that. But then if I need to do another one, then I'm gonna have to probably put one there as well. To really get all the way into I don't know, what is that, Walnut Creek? Something like that, somewhere. I don't know. Yep, we sort of got Walnut Creek. Looks like we would have to probably put one directly into the valley down here, in order to really cover that valley, right? And so you can kind of see how intense is this valley? Like if I want to cover this valley, do I need to put one like in the valley, or can I just get away with one on a nearby peak, right? So the Bay Area is full of nooks and crannies, right? Like you can really see like all these holes. If you ever wonder why is cell signal so bad in the Bay Area, this is why. So you can really really see it with the San Francisco. You probably won't need to run many simulations if you live on a flat plane. If you're in Kansas, just put it somewhere, you'll be fine. But here you need to run this. That help.
Also,
Um,
these power levels are like for people who are not licensed, right? So like
I
the dBm is a logarithm relative to 1 milliwatt. So like the maximum power level for most LoRa radios is like a quarter of a watt. But if you get your license, you can do like up to 10 watts. So you can go to like 37 decibels. So
mhm.
these levels are like really, really, really low, which makes it hard to be confident of a connection, even when it looks like it should work. But if you get your license, you can do many orders of magnitude more power.
I think dBm, these are like the smaller dBs, right? I'm like, I don't remember what that unit is.
It's a logarithm relative to 1 milliwatt. So less is like negative is it's less than 1 milliwatt.
Okay. All right. Oh, okay. All right. And then you can do above 1 milliwatt if you have a
If you have your
license.
license,
Okay. All right. That makes
you
sense.
can go up to 37, which is 10 watts,
Uh,
which is like really a lot. And I assume that's what's happening on Diablo Mountain because they have I can see it from Roseville, you know. It's like almost 100 miles away. I can see it. So
yeah. So you would have to get a license. Yeah, your amateur radio license. How do
yeah.
we get our amateur radio license? I'll go ahead and stop my.
Any like fire department, any like it's this like you should like everybody should be like first aid certified, right? Like everybody should know CPR, AED, all that stuff, and also like first aid and amateur radio. Because if you have a disaster, if you have an emergency, like how do you call for help, right? There's so many people on TikTok now trying to sell like you should buy the amateur radio, and it's like, do you know how complicated this is? Like, you know, if you don't take the class, read the book, get your like pass the test, there's zero chance you're going to use it to call for help, right?
Yeah.
But when you like learn all it, it's really like not that complicated once you have like the big picture and like, you know, if you already understand like linear circuits and electronics, like it's not that much further to learn about how like wave propagation works and like power levels and, you know, the laws that you have to follow. Like for example, no singing allowed. It's a crime unless it's with the intent to wake someone up in the morning on the International Space Station. That's the exception, right?
That's the exception.
But like you know, they test you on all of that, and like there are people who are bounty hunters that are looking for people that break the rules, and they'll find you because they get a bounty for it. So,
Yeah.
but it's really not that hard to get it, and then you can take advantage of these much higher power levels, and we definitely need a few, you know, and all of these amateur radio clubs do that for free. You know, you can they'll have like working groups and workshops and stuff. The best one thing that's good is like all of the test questions are public. So like it's a bank and then you'll get some portion of those randomly. So there are a ton of free quiz sites where you can like just go through and just keep doing it until you can reliably get all of them right, and then you're ready, right? And you really should read the book and know the theory behind that, but like there isn't more to it than that. Like you can take the quizzes online for free as many times as you want, and you can go get your license. I think it's like $10 usually. So highly recommend it.
It's also really important, like, you know, the CB radio frequencies are used by a lot of people. First responders use them, widely distributed firefighters use them. Um, you know, and so if you use those CB radio frequencies improperly, like you can endanger people. And you like it is like there's only one radio frequency at the CB, or like there's only one radio range in the CB range, right? And so everyone has to share it. We can't set up a second one because it's just a frequency of light, you know. Like there's only one, the color blue. And so like everyone has to share the color blue. It's kind of the same thing. You can't set up a new color blue. You know, there's no doing that. And so that's largely why like they're so strict about it, and that's why the radio bounty hunters are out there, is they really just want to keep the airways like clean and clear, you know.
TB is like sort of the Wild West though. It's really not regulated. There are rules, but no one follows them, and no one cares. Like it's wild. But I usually recommend for people, if you want to get like a disaster preparedness like radio to have, that you're not gonna like take the class and read the book, definitely get a CB instead of an amateur radio, because it's very, very easy. It's very, you turn it on, you're talking to people, people can hear you, other people have them, first responders have them, dispatchers have them, right? There's an emergency channel. You can usually get like the weather alerts and stuff. Um, this one is rechargeable. I really like this one. It's kind of expensive, but any of them are fine, right? Like if you go to a thrift store, somewhere in that thrift store, there's a pile of them, and they're all like $10, right?
Yes.
It's so easy, and the power level on these, like the Meshtastic power level is a quarter of a watt. The power level on every CB is 4 watts, and that's like way higher than like even what you can normally do with amateur radio. So CBs are a really good option for sure, and you don't need any kind of license or permit. Anyone can use a CB, but
Oh
everybody
yeah.
can tell where you are. So watch what you do.
Yeah, it's ham that you need the license and not CB. I always get that I don't have either of them, so I'm like, I was like,
So much more complicated.
yeah, I do say like, you know, about can people use them without a license in an emergency? I think if it's a declared state of emergency, like, can you? If you ask, they'll say no. But if you do it and you say, sorry, it was an emergency, it was during the hurricane, they'll be like, okay, well, don't do it again, and that's what will happen. You know?
It's true. Anyone can use an amateur radio in an emergency legally, but like you're not gonna know how. Like it's really complicated. It's not the same as turning on a CB and talking to someone.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned SSB. You can use if you're doing single sideband transmissions with CB, technically you can use more power. What is that? You have to read the book. It's very complicated. Is it up band? Is it down band? Is there simplex? There's all this other stuff that you really don't need to know if you just want to like call the emergency first responders, right? But if you want to be able to do like these higher power levels and this more complex types of transmissions, then you really do have to get certified to even be able to, you know.
And if you want to, you know, keep in touch with folks, literally the mesh, y'all. We're trying. That's why we haven't been like, okay, everyone, here's the, you know. There's also, of course, the the Discord that CJ has set up. And uh, CJ, can you drop the link of that? I don't know if I have that, but or on me, but
I
also.
actually don't really understand Discord. Julia set it up.
Oh yeah. You know, there's the mesh, y'all. Um, if you signed up on the Luma, let's see, sorry. There we go. If you signed up on the Luma, you're gonna get like a follow-up, with like a, you know, what to do next, where to go next, what the next steps are. And you should have gotten one if you came to the last one with the link. And then if you could fill this out, give us your feedback, tell us what you're confused about, tell us what has not been covered, and also like what is in the way of you participating. I know some people are kind of coming in with not a lot of background, or this is like your first meeting, and that's totally cool. We have the last two meetings covered at I keep losing the links. Here was the first meetup, and here was the second meetup. Oh, well, yep, that's the second meetup. Okay. And that has the recording of the second meetup. I think the recording for the first meetup is up somewhere.
I don't think it worked.
Oh yeah, I don't think, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Um, yeah, Discord is compromised, and so it's like, you know, Prism just monitors all that stuff. So I wouldn't use it for any real organizing stuff, other than to be like, there is an action. Okay, the end, bye. You know, like that's if you're on Discord and you're trying to spread that kind of stuff, you know. But the mesh is again anonymous and not tracked by the government, and so, you know,
I think
um,
Discord is kind of good for kind of like the way that it's this one is set up. It's like everyone has the intro, you introduce yourself, and then you get to pick what topics you're into, and you will see like conversations about that. Yeah, kind of more for like socializing than like it would be hard to like work on a specific project on Discord. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Someone
Um,
someone brought up an interesting point that goes back to a question that you asked earlier about on the TikTok comments about they put one on the roof and it doesn't reach anywhere in the house. So this is because of another. So earlier you asked about the decibels of an antenna. So the decibels that an antenna is measured in is dBi, decibels isotropic, versus dBm, which is a measure of the power that is actually arriving from it, right? So isotropic is the question of like how directional is the antenna. So a lot of people think that like more decibels is better on an antenna, and that's actually not necessarily correct. It's just more focused somewhere, which might not be where you're trying to reach. Um, so like there is no general purpose, perfect, like best solution antenna. Um, a higher decibel antenna is one that's focused. It's not isotropic. Isotropic meaning it goes in every direction at the same amount. but like the more decibels, the more focused it is. So like a Yagi antenna that's like going really specifically somewhere, it's going to have like a very high dBi, but it's not necessarily like you may be standing next to it and not be able to reach the signal, right? So if you have one on your roof, it may indeed be the case that you can't actually reach it inside the house from another device, depending on the dispersion pattern, which is also a function of the ratio of the length of the antenna to the wavelength of the frequency being transmitted. And there's a lot of theory about that. But there is a correct answer. Like a bigger antenna is not necessarily better. Typically, like your highest general performance is going to be a 5/8, an antenna that is 5/8 the length of the wavelength is going to have the furthest reach on the ground if you're on the ground. I did a video about that recently if people want like a lot more details, but it's witchcraft, you know, like it's so complicated and there's so many variables. Just gotta try stuff.
Yeah. It's like machine learning, very vibes based, literally vibes based. Um, it's the best, Coven. Yeah, I was gonna ask what's your favorite, like, how do antennas work video series, so that's pretty cool. That's what I was looking for, was like a soft-spoken nerd who would show me with a visualization, probably on a black background it's blue or something, you know? That will explain this whole thing for me, so yeah. Um, Bay Mesh wants everyone to use medium slow instead of long pass. Yeah. Um, yeah. We get vibrating crystals in the clouds to change things in the real world, so that's definitely magic. Tricked sand into thinking, definitely magic. I don't know. It's cruelness, but um
The video is from like a few days ago on TikTok. It's just it says antenna theory. It's like very technical, but it's
Oh,
if you want like a lot of details, it's a good one.
2 to 3 large panel antennas. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Slightly down. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I didn't really understand that thing about the DBI, and when you said that, like, a lot of things clicked for me as to why, like, times when I've had to, like, install Wi-Fi networks across a large space or something like that was specifically what, and like, yeah, many things clicked for me. My brain is every time we run one of these, I'm like, I learn a bunch of new stuff and I go and I watch like 6 hours of YouTube, so it's pretty good.
With
Um,
Wi-Fi 6 now, we've got the these like nano antennas, which are just wild. There's like particles on the antenna that aligns in the direction the connection is coming from. So it's actually like physically changing shape at the molecular level to focus the power towards what it's connected to, which is
that's
like
cool.
it's so wild.
That's so cool. Oh my God. I love stuff.
That literally is witchcraft at that
Oh,
point.
cool. That is absolute witchcraft. Now we've got the men are gonna find out we can shapeshift. Going to tell the church. Um, all right.
Someone said, "What, if any, considerations should we have in mind in tornado season?"
Yeah.
One of the big things that we should always have in mind is the surface area of whatever you have on the pole is gonna be related to how much wind it catches, right? So if it's very windy and you have like a big box with an antenna on it that's like 20 feet up in the air, there's gonna be a lot of force on that versus if you're using like a smaller one, like that one that someone posted of the buoy where it's like very small. There's not a lot of air inside the enclosure. It's like basically just the size of the board, right? Because with Meshtastic nodes, you want to have the shortest possible connection between the board and the antenna. You don't want to use a long cord to get it up there, or else you're going to have a bad signal to noise ratio because the power level is so low. Um, unless you're using one of those higher power levels if you have a license to do that. So you do have to put the radio like up in the air with the antenna, but the smaller the enclosure you can get on it, or if it's like mounted onto a wall or like a pergola, something that's kind of already there catching the wind, that's going to be probably a safer bet. And you can also do one of the things that a lot of amateur radio people do if they're like in an HOA where they're not allowed to put an antenna mast up, is they will put like an antenna, a dipole, like a sideways antenna, like up in the attic, hang from the rafters, and it's all wood, so it's not interfering, and they're able to use that like a big mast that would be, a few feet higher than that on the roof. So there's all kinds of ways you can sort of get around that depending on your circumstances. But it's an important thing to keep in mind whether or not you have tornadoes around.
Yeah. Um, well, okay. Yeah. Yeah, bad house. Um,
GPT
what
does know a lot about Meshtastic.
it does.
It
It
does say things that are totally wrong also.
Tell it to search the web every
Yeah.
time you ask it a question about Meshtastic and look at the source that it brought, because if it hit you or Reddit, like there's a lot of misinformation about radios on Reddit that I found while I was trying to write a thing for Meshtastic the other day. So
Yeah.
um,
I
Reddit
was
is
asking
not
it
very
to
good.
explain how the P2P encryption works. And it's like, oh, it uses GPG. And it's like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Like,
Uh,
what are you talking? I was literally like, stop making things up, go search the internet, bring me a source. And it's like, oh, actually, this is the correct answer.
yeah. My teenager does that, so you know. Um, let's see, what radiation patterns? Yeah. Stingray hunting is where we go and look for uh the the things that the cops use to place you at a protest. And then, yeah, GPT, it will definitely, I GPT, the former director of the NSA sits on the board of OpenAI. So like you can't trust GPT. I will say I know you don't love like the some people are not pro AI, but like it's pretty helpful for like a lot of people have like a baseline smart friend they can ask a dumb question to at any point. So we kind of want everyone's smart friend to have the right information, otherwise less hallucinations, more better. Um, and it's hard to get people to tell it to search the internet because they don't know how to do it, but I hope that GPT is more correct over time.
Also,
Um,
Pocket Pal.
Pocket Pal,
People are
heck
aware of Pocket
yes.
Pal. You
Pocket
can run
Pal.
the AI model on your phone. It's
Who
not
doesn't?
going anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's some really good ones that will run on most people's phones, and it's free and it's open source.
Our DeepSeek R1 distill of Quen coder at 7B, you can get like 20 tokens a second on the Pixel 9 Pro,
Yeah.
which is enough to solve your problems and also mutate malware. So, it's fine.
The R1 Distill in particular is like very fast on cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And it does thinking and everything. They're reliable. It's just that they don't have access to the internet. So like, how reliable are you when you cannot look at the internet to find the exact number or like thing? If somebody was like, "Hey, which encryption algorithm does Meshtastic use?" I'd go, it's I think earlier CJ said AES 256, so is it that one probably maybe? And then I know there was another one, there's an asymmetric one, but like that was a few minutes ago. Give me 3 hours, I won't remember. I won't remember the number. I won't remember about the asymmetric one. So I mean the whole reliability issue is, I'll
Someone
talk
said,
about, yeah, good.
couldn't there be LLMs on Meshtastic? Yes, we are working on that next week.
next week.
It's definitely a huge part of the goal. If you follow my AI channel, I show you how to put LLMs to run on a Raspberry Pi for free with like your own web interface that's just like ChatGPT, but it's running on your device, and there's no connection to the outside world, and there's no control over what you're allowed to use it for. It doesn't have to take a political perspective from some billionaire that you don't agree with, right? You can run it yourself. Also, you can do it on your phone, but personally for me, like having something else to run it on so I can still use my device when I'm waiting for it, right? Like it's really great to put it on a separate device. And this can be uh, connected physically to the Meshtastic node wherever we're putting them, and then everyone can use it, right? So that's part of the plan, and that's what we're going to work on next week.
Yeah. Yeah, Internet in a Box. You can look up internetinabox.org. Uh,
It does work on iPhone. Someone asked if they're dumb for having an iPhone. Pocket Pal works on iPhone and Android.
mhm.
So you can run AI models on your iPhone.
Yeah.
iPhones have really bad hardware specs, so you can't run anything bigger than they only like the best iPhone only has 8 gigs of RAM, so some of that is being used by the OS. But you can use like the 3 billion parameter model definitely or
Yeah.
the one, you know.
Yeah. If you want to run, if you want to use, or sorry, yeah, so, if you want to use, if you want to use a number of pies or one pie or whatever you want to do, EXO is like a thing that will allow you to cluster a bunch of, like you can cluster your MacBook and your Pixel 9 Pro and an old MacBook together to run a larger model than any individual device could have run. So if you want to run the 671 or something like that, a couple of computers can do it if you don't have the RAM to do it on one computer. So let's say that you were able to find through some means a bunch of helium nodes. And so you had several helium nodes together that you then took the firmware off of and used for a different thing. You could probably use EXO to like cluster them together and get them to run a fairly large language model. So I would use that. Um, you know, and yeah, they work on on pies and a number of other stuff. So yeah.
If you do want to run the largest models that we have though, like it's really not that expensive to get like a server from 10 years ago with more than enough RAM to run anything.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah.
it for $200.
Yeah. CJ's like got a bunch of resources and like build outs. So there's a lot of things. And also uh there's another one. This isn't there's a thing called Petals, which is free inference if you're interested in that. It's not secure because it's a distributed, it's just a bunch of people all providing inference to each other, but you know, uh it's a way to get free inference, so yeah. I don't know. I mean, what are the specs for, I mean, it's really like the number of billion parameters is roughly analogous to the number of gigabytes of RAM that you need, and then if you quantize them down, they'll be less, they'll be like half as much or like 1.2 as much, so depending on what quantization you're actually using. And that is how you can run larger models on smaller hardware. So I mean, it really depends on how many, the RAM, the GPU, which specific processors, and so on and so forth.
Somebody made a ternary, like a 1.58-bit version of the 671 that'll run on like 120 gigs of RAM, which is like wild. It's not
That's
very good, but it's like it's insane that that's possible at this
possible.
point.
The ternaries.
I
It
love
is,
ternary. Ternary is the future.
yeah. We always should have had ternary. We've always had the null state problem. This is the only room I can make null state problem jokes in, and somebody might get it. So thanks for being here. Yeah, honestly, yeah, infographic designs would be great. I have just put together a bunch of like collection of text. So yeah, any infographics that you might be down to make, please help us out. You know.
I think like one of the things that we keep talking about is like how do you explain what we're doing in like one sentence? Like, I don't know. Like walkie-talkies for texting is what I usually say, or like CB for texting, or like let's build a new internet.
Let's build a new internet is what I'm saying. Is new internet, but not corporations.
And
Or
everybody immediately is like, "Well, can I stream Netflix?" It's like, that's not what we're doing.
yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I don't know. If you remember the old internet, then you're like, yeah, we could go back to Usenet. It's fine. But if you're like, what's Usenet? Then you're like, what are you doing and why are you doing it? So, um, yeah. It used to be just text, y'all. Um,
I think also a lot of that will be easier to talk about after next week when we have the conversation about the applications that we want to include that will sort of like drive the actual activity. I think that will make it a lot easier to talk about.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, MIRC. Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very excited for BBSs to come back. And we will get it. So, join us next week and we'll talk about that stuff. Um, yeah. Internet relay chat, y'all. It used to be and Meshtastic kind of is IRC, but with configurable hops. You just never used to have to configure the number of TCP routes that you could take in a trace route, um, it's kind of like you have more control, but usually people are abstracted away from that control. But yeah, yeah, it should be really fun. Um, and yeah, I don't know, maybe they want to give us some money. I don't know. The future. Maybe we could email them and be like, give us some money. Great. Um,
Someone on TikTok asked if TikTok does actually get banned, whenever that's supposedly going to happen. Um, we're everywhere, so like the Substack is mostly where I'm posting like the regular updates about this project, with links to everywhere else. And then, I mean, if TikTok does, then my backup is Blue Sky to be like sort of the main place.
yeah.
And we
I'm
have the
on
Discord, we have the YouTube, and
I'm on Blue Sky a little bit. People have been finding me on Instagram, so apparently I have a big Instagram presence now, so I guess I'll be on that. I was like, no, Meta, but then you have to go where the people are, so it's like, eh. So I'll be everywhere, if TikTok goes down, but if not, then we'll keep being on TikTok. So, fingers crossed. I hope it doesn't, but yeah, please find us elsewhere. We'll be
someone
around.
said, "What is your Blue Sky name?" Someone on TikTok said, "What is your Blue Sky name?"
Oh yeah.
You can copy that.
What is my Blue Sky name? It's probably Liz the developer. I do not have a lot of followers on there.
People are posting your link. Okay. Oh, I don't think I can post links to TikTok. Where are we posting the updates for the project? At the High Desert Institute, highdesertinstitute.org.
Hmm.
And there's like a blog section at the bottom that has all the updates for this.
Hmm.
And that's the nonprofit that is handling the donations and the taxes and everything. And it's where the idea started.
We're gonna buy a bunch of nodes and then distribute them out. Some to y'all, some to specific groups. So Like, if you want to help us out, you want to donate. And also, if you're not sure what hardware to get and you want us to just get the hardware for you, that's like where. Fill out the feedback form and tell us you don't have a node, and then we'll reach back out to get you one. So,
Also, because it came up earlier, I just wanted to mention again that the donations are restricted. So the only thing that we can spend them on is the nodes. So in terms of like other things that we might do, this cannot be used for that. So
it's not just for people in our area. If you don't have a node and uh, you need some, and especially if your area has none, let us know. We'll send you some nodes.
but
Yeah,
primarily, hopefully, we're doing community gardens and intentional communities.
yeah. That's a big thing. We want to connect intentional communities and make sure that all the intentional communities are able to get to each other. So, those are the groups that we'd love to distribute to.
Someone said, "What about outside the U.S.?" Is different everywhere. In the US, it's using the frequencies that were for 3G before when there was 3G. So it's not going to be the same elsewhere, but there will be typically there's some version of it that's supported most places. So you would have to check the where you are, but Meshtastic can give you the deets on that.
Mhm.
Probably there is some frequency that you would be able to use for the local hardware.
Yeah. And then you just have a computer that like is either attached to two different kinds of antennas or something like that. And by a computer we mean an ESP32 that can bridge between them. So if you want to create inter-frequency channels, it's not actually that difficult to do. So we'll talk about people who want to run BBSs and all that kind of stuff next time. It's the software time. It's cool. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, the CJ can talk more about it, but yeah, CJ's the High Desert Institute is a 501(c)(3), and the specific fundraiser is uh only for nodes, so it doesn't do other things. It is only for the purchase of hardware. So,
If you wanted to give like an unrestricted donation, the best way to do that is if you sign up for the Substack, you have an option to donate. We have another GoFundMe that's for buying land only. So those are our three fundraisers that we have.
yeah, would be helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know what probably there will be an impact on the prices of the nodes
Yeah.
at some point in the near future.
The cost of gas and eggs went down. Yeah, because you signed some treaties with the Bricks crew, which like way to go. Like, it's good. We love to see it. Please break down American hegemony. Uh, yeah. Cool. All right. Other questions? I don't know. One of. We're waiting. We're waiting. Yeah, Adrian. Meshtastics and satellites. They're like a satellite would be what's known as a backhaul, as in like we take it off of the mesh network and we put it through another network. And that could be the corporate internet, that could be a satellite, that could be another radio, software-defined radio thing, that could be, you know, you print it out and a guy named Sam drives it across the state lines and drops it off and like, backhaul just means we take it off the mesh and then we through some other means transmitted. Carrier pigeons, smoke.
Satellites are the worst possible way to connect networks.
Yeah. Like expensive, slow. Elon Musk is probably involved. Like
Probably like
cellular
very limited. The
limited
total
bandwidth.
bandwidth is extremely limited.
Yeah. Yeah, the build list.
Someone said, "What about man in the middle?" It's not relevant. The connections are AES 256 encrypted, so
Yeah.
the end encrypted. There's
Yeah.
no man in the middle attack.
Yeah. You only have to worry about your node being compromised. So similar to Signal, if you're in a secret group chat, but then somebody's phone gets compromised or somebody gets added to the chat who shouldn't
Like
have
a
been in there,
journalist.
then like a journalist, then you've compromised your whole chat. So, as long as both end-to-end encrypted works when neither end is compromised. The thing about the Meshtastic stuff is that it's a pretty rare chipset. It hasn't really been targeted by a lot of signals intelligence groups. The chipset itself hasn't been like there's not CVEs out. The Express IF, the only thing that we found was some CVEs about a debug mode that is disabled by default. So there's not a lot of compromise. That said, if somebody really sat down and bent their mind to breaking the Meshtastic firmware for a really long time, I'm sure they could figure out a way, but they're not going to figure out how to compromise the network, as in compromise like and do man in the middle. The only thing that they'll really get is if you have physical access to the device, they might be able to compromise that and thus compromise anything that that device has. Um, but again, as long as you don't lose your device, they don't execute untrusted code. There's no like JavaScript. That was really when the web fell apart, is when we developed JavaScript because we just send code to somebody else's computer and then they just run it. And so like that's how the internet works. And so we don't have that on Meshtastic. We just have text. And you can also have it run voice, but there's not like things like with images or whatever, where it's kind of just because you sent an image, pwn the device, because it's not executing untrusted code and it's not executing a lot of fancy, insecure like compression or what is the thing? Blanking on the word for things like JPEG standard of image standards, image encodings. There we go. Can't words. I'm out of tokens. So, but yeah. Yeah, those undocumented features are only with physical access to the device can you get them. And also they're disabled by default. So, yeah.
But also, it wouldn't matter. Like if you had physical access to the nodes and you installed malicious firmware on it, you still wouldn't be able to access the messages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Um,
Someone asked, is Meshtastic utilizing ESP32? No, they're not.
no.
They could, but these are
You can use an ESP32 computer and a software-defined radio, but it won't be a Meshtastic thing. It's like a different
yeah.
thing, right? Yeah.
Wait, what? No, ESP32 is what a lot of the Meshtastic radios are built on, or devices are built on, right? Am I missing it?
Um, I'm not aware of
It's
any
like
that
a
are.
yeah,
There are
ESP32.
ones,
Yeah, is the I thought
but
I
the
know TDEC isn't like, but some
yeah,
of them are.
Deck isn't the T-beam
These
isn't
are
the Lily stuff, the Rock stuff, no. Like you
these are
can put a
MP3.
software-defined radio on an ESP32 and then run the Meshtastic firmware or parts of the Meshtastic firmware stack, and then it will run the Meshtastic framework. but the like, you know, and then but yeah, they're not by default ESP32.
I mean, you can get almost anything to compile into ESP32.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you got platform IO and a vibe, you can get there.
Yeah, exactly.
But the SoC that they're using is different than the vanilla
Oh,
one.
the Heltec ones are ESP32. Yeah, okay.
Right? Am
Yeah,
I? I'm sorry. I thought it was okay
I I thought there
because
was.
I was compiling fresh ones yesterday or
Yeah,
whatever. But
okay, yeah. I don't know. I have the T deck. I don't have one of the Heltech, so I have only touched those like when we did the in-person one. Um, I have
Oh,
six left. So yeah, I guess it sounds like they do. But again,
so
that's a
the Florida
physical.
32s are it's a package that combines like with the chip says LoRa 32 on it, but it has the discrete radio plus also an ESP32 inside.
Hmm.
yeah, some of the more recent, like there are a million different Express IF like things out there, like the C 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 5 A B. What like it's a lot, right? And so yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like ones that are fully ESP on the system on a chip, but then a lot of the other ones just use an external LoRa radio, but it's
Someone asked
ESP32.
Someone asked about using the flipper for Meshtastic. So the flipper you cannot use for Meshtastic, but you could put a Meshtastic node into the headers and connect through the headers to the Meshtastic. So that's a thing. Like the Marauder, people are like there's all kinds of like add-ons that have a separate system on a chip that can run other software and then connect to the flipper. But the flipper itself is not supported for Meshtastic.
Hmm.
This is the one from the Kickstarter, the black one.
Yeah, I got the black one too. I like it. Um, yeah. Yeah, I imagine you could do it. I think I have not on my desk. Maybe take it. A pile of electronic devices behind me. Robot arms. Things.
Someone said, is there an issue with the ESP32? Why do we not want to have the ESP32? If you have physical access to the ESP32, there is a undocumented vendor code that you can run on the host control interface. Like if you like have access to the actual like wires inside of it, yes, you can take control of it. But like, we assume that physical access to the device, you always can take control of it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's not unexpected or unusual that they would have undocumented vendor codes as part of the host control interface. All host control interface devices have that. Um,
Yeah.
there's no reason to avoid them, especially if you're not giving people physical access to it.
Yeah. And they might get physical access to it, but a repeater node, you don't necessarily need. Does the repeater node need keys?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. It just forwards any traffic that it gets on the protocol. Yeah. So, just like with internet, nodes and hubs and things, they store and forward. Well, they forward, they don't store, but yeah. Yeah, they're great. Um, so good. All right. Any other like thoughts, questions, concerns, stuff that y'all feel like we don't have scheduled in the future that you need?
Yeah, other topics we should cover next time. I'm excited for the OPSEC one.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Um,
We have hopefully there's a person that might be joining us who has not yet confirmed for sure, but it's very exciting if so.
if you need help with OPSEC, here's a thing I posted earlier. It's for if you need it for this weekend. So, yeah. FYI. I don't know. I don't know who wrote that. It's just one I found on the internet. Anyway. So, yeah, feel free to share. I don't know. All right, have a good one, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for trying to build another internet with us. It'll be fun. Build our own internet, and it'll be gay as hell. All right.
See you next week.
Yeah.